What is your take on parents staying together for the kids? Yeah, don't. As a 29-year-old father of a 1-year-old, there has been ups and downs, and I would be lying if I said I didn't think about these things. I ultimately come to wanting nothing more than this to work out, but would love to hear your perspective on this topic. Well, I could not possibly weigh in on the particulars of your situation, nor could I give you any advice about what to do about that. However, I am the child of divorce, which you might be like, oh, well, if you're the product of divorce, then we sure do want to stay together. I don't mean it that way. What I mean to say is, there is a significant amount of evidence at this point that two people thinking that staying together ultimately benefits the child in the long run. It just there's not a lot of evidence to support that claim. I mean, aside from the fact that it would be dubious value to the child, the other part is that you would be living kind of a life of misery or some kind of totally broken and worthless marriage. You know, just some kind of swamp of sadness and inescapability. I don't think that's any way to live either. And again, there is really no evidence that it produces meaningfully better outcomes for the child. The only thing I would say is, and this is what I would be kind of, the one piece of advice I would give by virtue of having lived a little bit of this, not all divorces or separations have to be acrimonious. They don't have to be acrimonious. You can decide how acrimonious you want them to be. Now, your partner has to make a decision about that as well. But the big key is just because you separate doesn't mean that the parents couldn't still work together as a parental pair, not a romantic pair any longer, but a parental pair for the betterment of the child. I can tell you my parents did not do that. And it was awful. It was truly awful. I had to go to court a million times. I had to testify, depositions, watching my parents argue in the fucking courtroom, like in the court hall, outside in the parking lot. This went on for years. Dude, when I graduated high school, I had to take a picture with my mom on one side of the street, and then I had to cross the street and take a picture with my dad because they wouldn't get together even for a picture. Like, that's a choice that they made, right? That was nothing I did, and that was nothing that they had to do. One of them, both of them, could have taken it upon themselves to, and that, by the way, that's just a small example of all the shit I've seen. That is but a fart in the breeze of all the toxicity I had to inhale. But it's just such a clear example. I remember I was like, even this, and I remember you have to understand, I was leaving for boot camp. I graduated high school on a Friday. I went to boot camp on Monday. So I had this sort of small amount of time to enjoy this whole moment, and they wouldn't even let me do that. So that's the choice. The choice is you don't owe anything to your romantic partner. Well, you owe what your commitment is, but if you're no longer of the belief that this is a fruitful thing that you were willing to do the rest of your life, the question is, how do you navigate that as a parent afterwards without bringing the acrimony of your failed romance onto your kid? That's what you have to figure out. And I can tell you, a lot of people don't ever think about that, and I don't think my parents, as much as I love them and as much as I might miss my mother, I think that they fucked that up completely. So don't do that. Whatever else you do, don't do that.